welcome everyone to today's session, Future Ready Leadership with Kristin Leydig-Bryant, hosted by Bridge Innovate. Glad to have everyone joining us today. Let's get started. Today's webinar is a part of our In the Arena programming. In the Arena, it's where we hear from real leaders telling real stories around distinctive opportunities for us to learn from them around courageous leadership, innovation, and strategic change. So we're excited today to have an extraordinary leader with us in the arena of change and strategy, Kristin Leydig-Bryant. So without further ado, let's get going in today's program. As you know, I said before earlier, my name is Jenny Whitener. I'm the founder and CEO of Bridge Innovate, and we have the opportunity of working with clients all around the globe, helping them to transform leadership capabilities and innovate the next generation of their business. So let's continue on and let's welcome Kristin. Kristin Leydig-Bryant, CEO of Clarity at Work. Kristin and I have known each other for a number of years. Kristin, it's great to have you with us today on today's webinar and podcast. You and I had many years of experience together at Ernst & Young, leading transformation and change. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
I am so happy to be here, and especially with you and the Bridge team.
Well, great. Well, welcome. Well, I was going to take us on to the next slide and just share with the team, share with the participants today a bit more about your background and how they can get to know you better.
So one of the things I often struggle with, as many of us do, is how to answer the question, what do you do? And I've basically narrowed that down or distilled that down to saying I do three things in three areas of expertise. I facilitate groups, I lead executive education, and I do sort of the usual consulting that we think of about executing strategy, leading innovation, and organizational change management. And one of the sort of areas of expertise or tools that I've learned that support all three of those is this idea of strategic foresight. And so I was especially excited to join the group today and talk about how you can apply strategic foresight to a lot of different areas of your work. And there's some pictures here that just give you a little bit more of an idea of who I am. And I'm certainly open to any questions about any of those things, but we're here to talk about strategic foresight today.
Great. Well, let's get going.
All right. So when I first learned about foresight a few years ago, one of the things that really struck me, and I love this quote from Amy Webb, but I especially like the last two lines. You have to broaden your thinking or you will be left behind. I always thought my thinking was pretty broad. But then when I took the first foresight certification class, I basically had my mouth open for the entire time because I was so astounded by this new way of thinking more broadly. So I love that we start with this quote. Let's keep going. So what is strategic foresight? The thing I like about it, among many things, is that it is a discipline. It's a discipline that's oriented towards planning, and it gives you this set of practices and capabilities so that you can anticipate some potential futures and prepare for them. And we're going to see in a couple of slides, like all the different pieces of it. We're only going to touch on a couple of them today. But what I love about it is that it expands your thinking and it gives you a discipline to prepare for what the future could bring. And of course, we see all kinds of statistics about how firms that are future prepared can outperform the average by 30%, 33% more profitability. And they also have much higher growth because they're prepared for what might happen or what they believe is likely to happen, which they did through using this planning-oriented discipline. And of course, we need to think about ourselves as leaders and individuals. What kind of behaviors, what kind of mindsets do we need to have? And this is a nice little set. Need to be craving curiosity. If you're not curious about what's happening around you, what might happen in the future, what is happening in other places, you're never going to be a future-oriented leader. And once you're curious, the ability to then act courageously on that curiosity is completely tied into everything we're going to talk about later today. Welcoming diversity, thinking outrageously, and especially being able to connect the dots and think in multiples, which is what some of the tools and practices in this discipline give you. All of these things sort of blend together to give you more likelihood of success in anticipating and preparing for the future. So Bridge has a fantastic set of skills and process and practices and discipline. And you can see a big a big spectrum of these here. I've made a little tiny like martini olive over two of them, because that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how we can use a tool called the pestle to analyze trends and convert trends in our minds to signals, patterns, and drivers. And then we're going to play around a little bit with a tool called the foresight brief, using the impact uncertainty matrix to figure out what we want to create that foresight brief about. So there's a lot more to this than we can possibly cover in half an hour, but here's my two little cocktail olives we're going to do today. This is one of the things that really struck me about beginning to learn about strategic foresight, realizing that being an expert in something or knowing a lot about something also means that you could be the last to recognize that something's changing, that something is coming in from outside, that forces are going to push you in directions that you didn't even know existed. And so there's that sort of strange comfort in having that expertise that is also a risk. And that's something I think about a lot whenever I do one of these strategic foresight gigs.
You know, Kristin, that's interesting that you bring this up, because I think everything you've shared with us so far, people would say, absolutely, you know, like, why wouldn't people be exploring and analyzing future trends? But it is so often that leaders get comfortable, right? So think of the historic story of Kodak, right? The board knew, people knew that digital was here and here to, you know, was growing. But they just didn't want to accept that it would really impact their business. They just said that will never affect us. And it certainly did. By the time they filed bankruptcy, they figured that out. So I think it's a really good point. These things are things we should invest in. And it's a great call to leaders to make sure that they're making the time to do it and open minds about doing it.
Yeah, and the same thing, think about whenever you've gotten a taxi, like in a big city like New York, those taxi drivers spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on that special medallion to be able to drive a taxi. Here comes Uber and Lyft. It's just some dude with a car and an app. All right. So most of us think along this spectrum at the bottom, somewhere between pure gut, without evidence, all the way over to extensive evidence using models and timeline and facts. But foresight provides us with a method for sort of spanning all four of these sections of the spectrum so that we can identify the assumptions that we're making and hopefully recognize what to do from a position of knowledge. Let's keep going. And this is one of my favorite slides. When I first saw this, I was a bit overwhelmed, but I love this image of the flashlight and how the light gets broader and broader and broader. The part that's most sort of important, I think, with strategic foresight is that you're identifying these different possible futures on the outside circles, getting farther and farther into what's plausible and what's probable. But it gives you a structure for thinking about all of this and actually putting it into context for yourself so that you can map potential futures. Even though we can't predict the future, and people like to joke about futurists having a crystal ball, it's not like that at all. But we can use trends and data and research to map what the future could be and especially to map multiple futures so that we can say, these are the ones that are most likely to affect me, and I think they're the ones that are most likely to occur. So I'm going to be prepared for all of them. Okay? So one of the first steps of understanding what might come in the future is this idea of looking for trends. And I just have a couple of images here. There's a set of cards that we often use in session called the Wicked Opportunities cards that are a research set of trends. This World Economic Forum set of trends for the next 2 years just came out. So we need to be able to look at what the trends are to understand how they might create patterns later for the future. Because trends are, by definition, already here. They aren't what's coming. But if you're putting more than one trend together, you're more likely to be able to anticipate what's coming. Okay? So the pestle is a nice tool to be able to map the trends that you see out there in an organized way. So what are the political trends coming at you? What are the environmental trends? What are the legal trends, technological trends, and social trends, and especially economical trends? This gives us a way to organize those trends so that we can then pick and choose the ones that might blend into patterns for the future.
Kristin, this is a great tool. I see so many of our clients, and I know your clients as well, looking for ways to try to make sense of the complexity they face every day in decisioning, whether it's around strategy or a new market launch. And I think being able to map something using a structure like this, so that if I'm looking at what is the economic forecast, what are we thinking there? And then, but look at the social dimensions around how people are behaving and connecting those two things. I think your guidance to us earlier about blending them, selecting several different trends, putting them into a context to say, if these were to come to greater clarity in the future, what would that mean for our business? So helping us to map these trends, I think, is just the beginning of really understanding the opportunities ahead.
Yeah, I really love a pestle analysis because it gives us a way to make sense of the chaos of all the trends, and then we can pull from each of these letters to decide which ones make the most impact for us and blend them together into futures that we can then anticipate.
Great.
So here's one trend that just is, it's fun in this sort of terrifying way, but let's just watch a couple of minutes of this technology trend that could have a lot of impact across that pestle.
It's on TikTok. All year long, Deep Tom Cruise has been posting videos showing what appears to be a different side of the Oscar-nominated actor.
I think there's bubblegum inside this. People are surprised that I'm a big Dave Matthews guy.
But believe it or not, that's most definitely not Tom Cruise. Nor is this with me in our LA bureau.
This is serious breaking news, but a little behind the scenes, a little flavor. I'm with one of the most legitimate correspondents on earth. Now, if you're interviewing me, Jacob, you face it. Hold on just a second. There's a big fire. We're safe.
You are deepfake Tom Cruise.
That's me. That's me.
Miles Fisher may have an uncanny resemblance to the superstar, but using advanced technology, what he's created is far more than an extraordinary impersonation.
Have you guys created the best deepfake that has ever been made?
I think we have created the first deepfake that's so realistic that a large majority of people have seen.
Not only seen, but fooled by, including at least one of the world's biggest celebrities.
This is the one that Justin Bieber thought was real.
Fisher says looking and sounding like
I
the
think
leading...
that's enough if we want to, imagine the impact this could have if somebody could do this for a world leader, a business leader, if you could do it for the CEO of a big company. So now let's think about the rest of the pestle. That can have huge political implications. It can have economic implications. The security and cyber crime that becomes possible with something like this, there are all kinds of directions that could go. So once you sort of identified a trend like that, deep fakes, as a T, a technological trend, we can then look at the rest of the pestle to say, okay, what other trends could possibly affect what I'm doing? And the impact certainty matrix is a tool that helps you do that. So if you've got a set of trends that you've identified, you can then say, well, where do these go? How certain do I feel that this is going to happen? And that tells you whether to put it above or below the line. And then how much impact is this likely to have on me or my business or my organization, which tells you whether to put it to the right-hand side. That's something I need to be really thinking about right now. Or to the left-hand side, that's something that's going to have longer-term impact. And I either need to make sure my strategy considers it, or if it's a lower degree of certainty, I'll think about that a little bit later. So this tool, the classic 2x2, is real helpful for figuring out which of the trends you need to be worried about as you get into a foresight activity. So what I thought we might do is practice a little bit, and we don't have a whole lot of time, but if you could take a piece of paper and fold it into quarters, and you can label it like this: high degree of certainty, low degree of certainty. And just as we're talking, think about which of the trends on the left-hand side. I just pulled some out of that World Economic Forum and some other research that I've done, and to get us sort of a list that tells us some of the things that are going on in the world. How can we map some of these to this 2x2 to figure out for you which one of these trends are the ones you want to be paying the most attention to strategically, looking out? Those are going to be the ones that end up in the top left. So, for example, for me, the cost of living crisis is a pretty big trend with a lot of the companies that I work with, and the inflation that they have to deal with, as well as that gig economy. People are changing the way they want to be involved as an employer. So those are a couple of trends that I would put for myself and my clients into the informed strategy. Mm-hmm. For me, I don't think deep fakes is necessarily as fascinating as it is. It's not necessarily something that I see having that much impact on my business. Maybe I'm wrong. But you can see if you were to map all of these trends, they would start to group in these 4 areas. And then you can make an informed decision about which set of trends you most want to play with as you look at creating a potential future you want to plan for.
So, Kristin, when organizations do this, who is it typically you see like embracing this kind of thinking? Like, is it, you talked about influencing strategy. Is this sort of limited to the head of strategy, or like, are there other leaders who should be applying this? Give me your perspective on that.
So since one of my sort of sweet spots and areas of passion is that people at all levels need to execute the strategy of an organization. So I think this could apply to anyone. Now they've got to do it at their own level. So if you are executing the strategy and translating the strategy from a C-suite level, which the C-suite level has to do this. But if you're at a mid-level, an SVP level, or an AVP level, you need to do this also for your organization with the context of that larger strategy of the organization that you swim in.
Right. I mean, a lot of our clients today are, I think, just in the beginning stages. Some are much more mature of using artificial intelligence. I mean, everybody today says we have some AI-enabled part of our business, whether it's, validating customer preferences or doing some predictive pushes on customer preferences, or getting something more sophisticated like adjudicating a claim or positioning it for a decision. That would be an example, I think, of where you're saying, identify this future. And then what does it really mean to the unit I lead?
Yeah.
And what should I be looking for? Do I need to be exploring advanced analytics in greater depth? And how might that impact our marketing strategies, or how might it impact our product development strategies?
Right. And with artificial intelligence, I mean, something that has popped up all over my radar in just the last couple of weeks is this Chat GPT, this artificial intelligence that can do this writing for people. And it's really interesting, the abilities that it has to turn out really high quality stuff. But once in a while, and it's not that rare, it really messes up. So what could that mean for someone at the level within an organization that might want to implement something like a Chat GPT in their customer care or in their copywriting or in their marketing writing? It's a really interesting conundrum that I'm seeing a lot of conversation about right now.
It makes you think about the importance of like quality assurance, or maybe there will be a new version of quality assurance that will be the human perspective.
Right.
You know, like maybe there'll be the evolution of AI generated products, services, content, whatever. And then is there an oversight in the early stages of this that's really the human lens, or does that become a new consulting practice? Like,
and then sometimes I wonder whether we're just going to have all these chatbots just chatting to each other.
Right. And so like maybe we're on the beach sipping a glass of wine or a margarita. We're just letting the bots take over. That'd be
right.
really
That's what I thought all this technology was supposed to get us to, right?
Yeah, that sounds
So the next step, after you've got a little set of trends that you're interested in and you think make a possible future that could be really relevant to you, the first next step is to do a map. So I would say you choose maybe 3 to practice with this. And on your little piece of paper, choose the 3 that that sort of came together in one of those 2x2 quadrants. And then put on your little movie preview hat and write 3 sentences, sort of create a compelling narrative of what that potential emerging future would look like. And I love to put on my in a world voice, where we say, in a world where these 3 trends are all now true and interacting with each other. And then write a little description of what are the implications for your organization, new implications. What does that mean about your people? What might that mean about the technology that you need? What might that mean about how your customers or clients would either change or change how they interact with you in that world? And that becomes an outline or a high level basis for all of the rest of the things you can do to actually begin to analyze and prepare what that world might be like for you.
right. You know, Kristin, a lot of people will say the realist of the world would say this is a waste of time because it is fiction. I mean, we're not predictors of the future. We're just trying to anticipate them so that we're prepared, right? That we're ready. Going to your point about today's title of your session, a future ready leadership.
Yeah.
How do you convince executives in the C-suite to really get this fact that we need to think about design fiction?
I don't think it's a waste of time to prepare for something that does not happen. I think it would be tragic to not prepare for something that you could have prepared for. Mm-hmm. So if you do this well and you describe, let's say, 5 in a world and only one of them came true, you were prepared for that one. And you were also prepared for the ones that didn't happen, but you did prepare for the one you could prepare for.
Mm-hmm. Right. So once an organization gets that design fiction, there may be some prioritization of these different future probable or possible trends, and then determine what actions you're going to take, right? You know, so do we get more insight on AI? Do we get more insights on advanced analytics? Do we get more consumer behavior knowledge to help shape our products or maybe our infrastructure so we're ready? And that kind of ready?
Exactly.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So back to our broad look at all of the things that companies can do within the Foresight Scout structure. And just because I love martini olives so much, I wanted to show this slide again. But there are a whole lot of things, a whole lot of tools that I didn't even touch on, which hurt my heart to pull out. But I think just having an awareness that there are these structures and disciplines available to you, it's not just stabbing in the dark or throwing darts. There is a discipline and a way to use the data that we have to help us be better prepared for what could come, because something is coming. And so let's do the best we can to figure out as closely as we can what that might be.
Great. Very exciting. I think great challenges to us as leaders to make the time. It seems like today that, one of the greatest challenges for all of us who are pressured to do more with less time is, what do you make time for? And, hearing you today talk about some of these macro trends that are emerging and growing, they can have really significant impact on your business, and not being prepared could be a huge derailer for your organization. So it's great. I'm so thankful that you've heightened our awareness today of the importance of doing foresight, and the tips that you've given us in terms of, just start by looking at the trends and mining them and using a pestle to kind of help organize them, and the impact uncertainty matrix to try to analyze where you want to focus. And then I really love design fiction. And it's because I think you have to look at these probables or these possibles in order to see how they come together and collide.
Right.
What are your thoughts? Anything I missed?
No, I think for me, the sort of turning point of thinking was realizing that trends are by definition today. And to think about what might be coming in the future, we need to play with all of those trends that we think are most relevant to us, and figure out how they might blend together or collide against each other in ways that will be important for us moving forward.
Right. Okay. Great. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today. It's fantastic to have Kristin Leydig-Bryant on our show and to share her perspective of In the Arena. So as we're wrapping up today's program, do you have any specific guidance for leaders around the world who are in the arena? What's your one maybe point of advice that you would give them, whether it's on foresight or anything else? For a leader in the arena, what's the most important perspective that you would share?
So there's a metaphor I came across a few years ago that I think about a lot, and it's called the balcony metaphor. And if you picture yourself as a ballroom dancer or a line dancer or a mosh pit dancer or whatever it is, you're on the dance floor, you're doing your thing, you're getting stuff done. But once in a while, you've got to get off that dance floor and look down at it to understand what's happening beyond just the couple of people that you're dancing with. And I think that applies especially to foresight, but the real challenge is figuring out how much for you balcony time is needed versus dance floor time is needed, because every leader needs both.
Right. So that new perspective, right? Changing our perspective, giving ourselves time to broaden our perspective seems like a critical piece of advice from you today. Thank you so much. Thanks for being here. Yeah. And so what's up next in the arena with Bridge Innovate and a number of other programs offered by our organization? We have a 15-minute preview coming up on January the 19th on our new Idea Jam. That you can do that Idea Jam virtually, or you can come to our studio here in the Chattanooga area and do it with the team and come out with new ideas and prototypes in just a couple of hours. Foresight Scouts, our formal program where we meet over lunch virtually, is coming up. You can actually dig in to this content for your own company. And then, of course, our Roundtable Challenge, where our executives and residents are hosting a dinner over conversations of the greatest challenges that you face every day. Maybe some free coaching coming in there. And then Nicole Brown's coming in February for our next In the Arena speaker. So please do join us at bridgeinnovate.com and find out about all the events we're hosting for leaders in the arena. Thank you, Kristin.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
Bye-bye.